Good afternoon. Thanks for coming. It's my pleasure to introduce Iowa State Treasurer Mike Fitzgerald, who serves on the IPERS Investment Board with me. Mike's going to talk a little bit about IPERS and provide his professional expertise on the soundness of the program. Mike?
Thank you, Senator. As state treasurer for the last 35 years, I've been a trustee and custodian of the IPERS Fund. In that time, Iowa has continued to maintain IPERS as a secure, as a strong, and sustainable retirement system. Now, according to the GAO and other national rating agencies, IPERS is well managed and fiscally sound. The positive impacts of the Iowa Public Employees Retirement System stretches far beyond the 350,000 Iowans who have directly invested in the IPERS system. Families and Iowa communities see the impact when money from IPERS is reinvested throughout the whole state. In 2016, 88% of the retirement benefits, or $1.63 billion, that's billion with a B, stayed in Iowa. Whether it is large communities or counties, like counties like Polk County or Lynn County, or small towns in Osceola or Adams County, IPERS infuses millions of dollars into every county every year. Some current legislative proposals to change IPERS, including a bill that was introduced last session, could break the promise we have made towards hard-working Iowans. This promise has been made since 1953, and if this could cut benefits to current and future employees, we must be vigilant and work to protect IPERS.
I believe the IPERS public pension system, like those for law enforcement, are at risk in the 2018 session. That is not something that I say lightly. Iowa has a reputation for bipartisan support and management of public pensions. As Treasurer Fitzgerald mentioned, our pension funds are a national model. However, Republican control of the Iowa Governor's Office, the Iowa Senate, and House have resulted in disastrous 2017 session. We can no longer count on our state's former reputation for sober, careful, and bipartisan work. Here are three specific reasons to be ready to defend Iowa's public retirement system. Number one, things can change fast, despite promises to the contrary. Take, for example, collective bargaining. Before the session, Republicans talked about tweaking Iowa's Iowa's collective bargaining system that had been on the books for 40 years and signed and passed by a Republican legislature and Republican governor. In just 10 short days, that law was gutted. Second, Governor Reynolds has repeatedly talked about changing IPERS. Last spring, she talked about creating a task force that would bypass the established process for IPERS changes. This summer, she dropped the idea, but Governor Reynolds continues to support making fundamental changes to the IPERS retirement system. Three, a bill that would destroy IPERS as we know it has already been introduced and filed in the Iowa Senate. Senate File 45 would dismantle IPERS and other Iowa public retirement programs by preventing or blocking any new workers from joining these programs on or after July 1st, 2019. It would also move towards making IPERS and other public retirement plans risky compared to other defined contribution plans, and it certainly would be subject to the whims of the stock market. So my message is very simple today. It's a very clear message, and it is to all Iowans. Be alert. Be ready to speak up loudly if legislation to harm Iowa's financially sound, high-quality public retirement program comes up for debate. Thank you. Questions? Comments? Questions? Bill?
Republicans say they aren't going to do that.
Well, Republicans said they were going to tweak the collective bargaining bill, and within 10 days they had gutted a bill that had served Iowans for over 40 years. So I take that with a grain of salt. I would tell you, Charles Schneider, the second highest ranking member of the Iowa Senate, brought in the Reason Foundation, which is a right-wing think tank, and essentially took our system and talked about how to convert that system into a defined contribution system. So I hear what they're saying, but I cannot trust what they're saying anymore.
Also has to add, this is a national movement. The Koch brothers are financing a movement to get rid of defined benefit public pension plans all across this country. That's one of their main goals. And they're trying to do that in Iowa as well.
And I also, I'm holding in my hand Senate File 45, which was introduced last year by Senator Zahn, which essentially does exactly what we're talking about today. So I think given what their track record is, and given their allegiance to the Koch brothers, and given what the kind of dollars the Koch brothers have poured into the Senate Republicans and House Republicans, I think we should talk to the Koch brothers before we talk to the Senate Republicans. Yes, ma'am.
They're not going to just stop at IPERS. What about the municipal fire and police, the judicial, peace officers? I mean, are they going to roll this all together and go after them all?
The movement around the country right now is to move away from public pensions, period, and to move towards defined contribution plans. And I think that movement and agenda is well laid out, and I think that is ultimately the direction they want to go. And obviously, we're not trying to scare Iowans. This would apply to new enrollees into these programs. But there is no way to adequately annuitize without a lot of taxpayer money these existing pension plans that are dependent upon new enrollees keeping them afloat. So once you cut that off, you strangle and starve that pension program, and it eventually withers and dies. And that's what they want to do to our public pensions.
Public employees should be really concerned. And that's public employees, even retired public employees. They're in the strongest financial shape and strongest legal position. But there's legal cases in the court today challenging whether you can still cut benefits for retirees. So if they have the chance, they will. And we must be vigilant to protect public pension plans, whether you're a fireman or a high school teacher, wherever you're at, in any part of the state of Iowa, be vigilant. You need to protect IPERS.
Treasurer Fitzgerald, did you just say Republicans are going to cut the benefits for those who are retired?
That, I'm saying there are lawsuits that are challenging that clause. Usually say you have a contract, states and municipalities have to honor those retiree benefits. But there are court challenges moving forward, taking place today. And I can't predict how the court's going to rule, but the court's becoming more conservative all the time. And if that would happen, retirees' benefits would not be safe. So I can't stand up and say, hey, if you have a retired benefit, you're 100% safe. There is a chance You could have those cut in the future.
What type of communication have you had with Republicans either in the Senate or the House about, or the governor's office about activity or remarks made in the last, because this legislation, Senate File 45, was introduced last session, I don't even believe it got out of subcommittee. So has there been communication with Senator Zahn or the governor's office or Senator Schneider about where they stand now, December 2017?
So I'll speak for myself, and then the treasurer can speak for himself. I actually serve on the interim committee on pensions, so I've had a chance to speak to Senator Zahn, and he feels very firmly that we need to move to defined contribution programs. Senator Schneider took it a step further by bringing in the Reason Foundation, and they held meetings with legislators that worked around and on pension issues, and essentially made a strategic case for why the state of Iowa should move to defined contribution plans. Governor Reynolds has made public statements about this, but I have not talked to her specifically about her support for creating this task force and whether she pulled that idea off the table, but whether it's being pulled off permanently or not. But I know that the Reason Foundation has spent a lot of time with the Taxpayers Association and Gretchen Tegler trying to promote this idea, and I believe that it is starting to get genuine interest among my Republican colleagues.
What are defined contribution programs?
So a defined contribution program is what you would think of as a traditional 401k plan, and there are various types of programs. But what it would mean is an employee would put a percentage of their wages in, and the government then would potentially match that up to some percentage, and there would be a vesting schedule, and that employee then would become vested at a certain point. That's when you think about defined contribution, that's typically what a defined contribution program is. Defined benefit programs are still supported and paid for the vast majority by the employee, but then the state also matches that, and what you are is you're guaranteed a benefit, whereas under the 401k plan, you're not guaranteed a benefit, a monthly benefit, the same way you're given a monthly benefit under the defined benefit program. So it makes it harder for people that are retiring to actually budget and figure out how they're going to afford retirement.
I'd like to add on to that people should know a defined benefit like IPERS benefit, the employees are paying in. It's not a freebie from the state. Employees have 6% of their money taken out of their paycheck and put into this. The state will put in about 10%. And the state follows it. I mean, we hire actuaries to say, are we on course? Can we pay, like if a school teacher works 30 years, they're guaranteed 60% of their high 5 years, I believe it is, the average. It's a nice benefit. But the state doesn't have its head in the sand. They have actuaries that measure this every year. And they have said, and national rating agencies have said, IPERS is strong. It's over 80% funded. They have a plan to have it 100% funded within 20-some years. And it's moving along just fine. It's one of the best pension systems in the country. But there's still people like the Koch brothers and some leaders in the Republican Party want to change it, gut it, and put everybody in a 401k system, which is a defined contribution, they just define what you put into it. And then you're on your own. And you're subject to investment houses charging you an arm and a leg to manage it. And it's made it difficult for those to really grow in size. And we have, as I said, we have a system here in Iowa that's worked. So
Sure.
if it isn't broke, don't fix it.
It is a national model.
So is the implication that anything that Republicans from either chamber comment on this upcoming session in terms of legislation can't take it with a grain of salt? There's no trust there. I just want to make sure that's clear, because at least with the House Representative Kennegill saying, we're not touching this session. So the idea that the public just cannot trust that statement.
We're here for two reasons. One is to say that we have a history with these folks. You know, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. And so we don't want that to happen again. Number two, they have a history of saying they were going to tweak collective bargaining, and they came in with a bill to absolutely gut collective bargaining. And so, you know, trust is a two-way street. And let me tell you, it's been a one-way street up in the Iowa legislature, in the House and Senate, where I've served for 26 years. I have never seen such a polarized, one-sided, and almost abusive power by a majority party on a variety of topics. And so, to answer your question, trust is not there, and Iowans need to be vigilant.
Add on to that, you could include city councils and mayors and people like that were promised 4 or 5 years ago, after property tax limitations were put in place, the state would backfill. Well, there's serious talks of dropping the state backfilling local communities for the property tax that they're missing out on.
Yes?
Do you know approximately how much money the state has been contributing to the IPERS fund?
The state is many employers. You know, you have school districts put in money, and you have counties put in money for their employees, and you have the state puts in money. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe Donna Mueller said that it's about $40 million a year.
That's
put in.
that's
Something
what
like
that's what I remember, 40 million.
Yeah.
And that's our match on the employees' contribution.
Yeah. It's a 60-40 match. So it's, yeah, the employees are, out of their own pocket, are putting in a lot as well. And
Well, thank you very much for being here today.
thank you.